Welcome to this episode of KiniTalk. I'm Tamili Tianmei, and I have here with me today Khairy Jamaluddin. He's MP for Rembau, as well as Youth Chief for both UMNO and Barisan Nasional. Now, Khairy, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Now, you are the Youth Chief, so let me ask you, what is BN's appeal to the young?
I think we have a lot more to offer young Malaysians, young voters for the 13th general election in terms of policies for young people, in terms of vision for young people, and in terms of security for young people. And specifically, I think one of the biggest concerns for young Malaysians today are bread and butter issues, issues of economic growth, jobs, employment opportunities, opportunities to start a business. And I think on that score, we are streets ahead of the opposition. So that's on the bread and butter side. The other side that I want to talk about is political transformation. Talking about young people, I think they feel very strongly about political transformation, about freedom, about human rights, about good governance. And I think even on that score, traditionally people say, oh, the opposition's a choice for that score. I think we've shown that, we've walked the talk in terms of repealing the ISA. When the PM announced it, a lot of people were skeptical, saying that this is just talk before elections. We've done it. We've done it. We've repealed the ISA. Of course, we had to replace it with something else. Some people say that, is just as draconian, but it isn't. I mean, if you really look at the law that replaced the ISA, completely different. It doesn't allow for detention without trial. Yes, you can remand somebody for up to a month, but that's necessary in terms of security offences. And, what's happening today in Lahad Datu, we've had to take people in under the new legislation. So a lot of people who complained about the replacement legislation of the ISA, which is completely different, suddenly quiet now when we use it against terrorists in Sabah. And they know that it's a necessary legislation.
So what then can we expect from BN's manifesto?
Well, BN's manifesto, we will have, I don't want to preempt it, we'll be releasing the manifesto right after the dissolution of Parliament. It's in the final stages of preparation. But the trajectory, I think, is very clear. There will be a lot of, there will be some wow factors in the manifesto. We will do state manifestos as well for the first time. So every different state will have their own state manifestos with its own wow factors related to the local state government. But the trajectory is there. The trajectory of reforming the economy, transforming the economy, transforming politics in Malaysia, but something that is realistic based on the vision that we have already set, which is to make sure that Malaysia becomes a high-income economy by 2020, GNI per capita of 15,000 US dollar by 2020, which means we need more investment, which means we need more business confidence, which means we need to create more jobs, but at the same time, not leaving behind the weakest in society.
In a democracy, you've got the opposition and the establishment working together, but it seems like a lot of times, they're kind of at each other's throats. But how do you think after the elections we can actually work together?
Well, it very much depends on how you treat and how you accept the election results. I would very much like for both, obviously the winner and the loser of the elections, to accept the results and move on. But my fear is that if we win again at the federal level, and if the opposition, present federal opposition, fails to make inroads at the federal level, my fear is that they will not accept the results. They will continue to pressure. They will continue to take the process, the electoral process, and question it, question the credibility of the results, use platforms like Bersih to undermine the legitimacy of the electoral process. And that will make it very difficult for us to move forward in a bipartisan manner. If you want to move forward in a bipartisan manner, both sides, BN, Pakatan, working together over the next 5 years after the elections are done, you must first of all be in a place to accept the results. And my fear is that the conditioning that has been taking place even before the elections by Pakatan leaders is that we will win. If we don't win, it's because BN cheated. And that's not a good way to do it, because if you want the elections, and I believe most Malaysians, even if they don't support BN, they want some closure. You know, we've been at this for too long. For the last 2-3 years, we've been in election mode. And I think a lot of Malaysians want to move on. They are tired of partisan bickering. They want us to get together and work for the future. And I think it's not going to be good if there's going to be continued and constant undermining of the legitimacy of the electoral process. So I really hope that whoever loses will accept and be gracious in defeat.
What do you think BN needs to work on?
I think we need to prove to the people, we need to demonstrate to the people that this change is for real. And we have to pursue this change, continue to pursue this change, to show that we have learned from lessons of 2008, the message that the people tried to get across. That,
Could you summarize those lessons very briefly?
Yeah, you know, in 2008, obviously we were seen to be out of touch. We were seen to, to not have reform, transformed fast enough. The promises of reform were not embarked upon with a sort of vigor that people expected. And I think that was the biggest disappointment for people. And I think that message has gone across. And the biggest challenge for me, for instance, has been to take the message of transformation and reform and make sure that the party embraced it, you know, because I think that a lot of Malaysians, the biggest stumbling block was UMNO and the party, whether or not UMNO can change. And I think the main thing is to demonstrate to people that, you know, we have changed and we can change. And this is the bit that we need to do more about. We need to do more to demonstrate that this change is real and it's here to stay. And it's not just a pre-election gimmick. It's something that, you know, we want to make sure that people sit up and notice and say that, look, these guys are serious about changing. The theme of change must continue.
You mentioned a bit about how UMNO has had to change. Do you think the last 4 years has been enough? And can you briefly elaborate on some of these changes?
Well, I think the first thing is to get behind the transformation program of the PM to show that UMNO also supports the change that's been happening within the government. And I think you know, initially maybe it was a bit difficult, for instance, repealing the ISA, you know. But when we went down to the ground and explained, you know, we live in a completely different world today. You cannot just arrest people and throw them in jail and detain them without taking them to court. This is, you know, this may have been relevant, you know, during the time of the communist insurgency, communist threat, but no longer today. You know, today we must observe principles of natural justice. And not deny people their fundamental liberties. So we had to embark on political re-education for some people in our party. But I think it's well accepted today, and they understand. They understand the need to make sure that when we fight for instance, for the Bumiputra community, don't do it at the expense of others. You know, do it in a way that that ensures that the national agenda for all Malaysians is taken care of, but at the same time you make sure that there's still economic empowerment, education opportunities, fighting poverty, irregardless of race. So the needs base is there, but also at the same time there is still a decent emphasis on economic empowerment for Bumiputra. So that's happened. And the other thing is internal party reforms. We've changed completely our party election process. So this year when we have our party elections after the general election, for the first time ever, the president of the party, even myself, we won't be picked by central delegates anymore, we'll be picked by division delegates. So from 2,000 people deciding who the president of UMNO is going to be, you know, you're going to have hundreds and thousands of people, more than 100,000, 200,000 people deciding on the president of UMNO. So democratization of the party has taken place. So I think we've come off this process of internal reflection and change quite well. And I think my biggest satisfaction as UMNO youth leader has been that UMNO youth has been transformed from being this rabid, you know, radical, ethnocentric, right-wing Malay rights organization to one that's more service-oriented, you know, job fairs, education scholarship, helping people out, helping young people out with home ownership, things like that. You know, I've tried to reorientate Pemuda UMNO youth from being this out of touch, completely right-wing organization to something that's more relevant for young people today.
Now, does this coincide with your own kind of political evolution over time?
Well, maybe, you know, at that time I was also a creature of UMNO Youth. You know, I was politically born in UMNO Youth at that point in time, and UMNO Youth at that point still was very much attached to this vision of its existence. And I realized that, you know, after looking at the 2008 results, looking at, you know, the developments, or even over the last 10 years, and even at 2004, the promises that we made, that government and top leaders in the government had already made that shift. The party hadn't made that shift. And it was very important to me that UMNO Youth lead the way, because UMNO Youth is traditionally has been the vanguard of UMNO. So if there's change, UMNO Youth must lead that change. So in the 70s, it led the change to become more radical, right-wing Malay. Now it must lead the change to be more centrist, more multi-ethnic in its outlook, even though not in its membership because of our party. And I said, to be radical today is not to be a radical right-wing in UMNO. To be radical today in UMNO is to be centrist. That's the radical position, because let's face it, the mainstream cliche position in UMNO is being right-wing. So if you're a centrist today, that's something radical. So radical centrist, it doesn't, I mean, maybe it's an oxymoron, but that's what I've tried to do. And I think it's succeeded, and so far it's had some success. And I'm quite happy because, you know, I said, yeah, you can still do your demonstrations, your police reports and all that, but it has to be more than that. It has to be service-oriented. We have to offer young people something different because they're looking for something different. And I think, you know, I'm in my own small way, that small transformation has happened in UMNO Youth. I'm quite happy that it's happened, because without this strategic pivot, I think we would completely be irrelevant and out of date.
And talking about going forward, I'm quite curious, you've had a pretty diverse background, you've lived in a range of countries growing up. Do you think that the era of race-based politics in Malaysia will have to come to an end eventually?
Yes, you know, I mean, ultimately, you would like a situation where politics, just like anything else, is measured on policy merit and is race-blind. But it's a process that doesn't just involve political parties. It's also a process that involves society as a whole. Political parties are a reflection of society. And the reason why race-based parties still exist is because of Malaysian society. Of course, some people argue that, well, if politics is there to change things, with your leaders, you have to change things. Yes, but if you change things, then it's completely out of step with how society sees themselves, then the change may not be accepted. Even if you look at the opposition, I always have this debate, you know, I say, they always like, oh, you know, race-based party, UMNO for Malay, Bumiputras, MCA for Chinese, MIC for Indians. And I tell them, look, PAS is not a race-based party, but it's a religious-based party. You know, forget about being an associate member if you're not Muslim. It's an Islamic party, full stop. So if you're looking at exclusivity, it's just as bad as being a race-based party. And I said, DAP is even worse. And they're like, oh, why is DAP even worse? I said, look, DAP claims to be a multi-ethnic party, multiracial party, but it's dominantly Chinese. So to me, I said, it's better to be out and out, you know, saying Malay party, you know, you are what you are, rather than being something that you are, something other than what you claim you are. And that's worse. You claim that you're a multi-ethnic party, but you can't even get Malay members. That's worse than us. What you see is what you get with UMNO. But with DAP, it's completely different. You see, so even DAP has that problem, you know, trying to shed that image. So race-based politics, the finger's not just pointed at MCA, MIC, and UMNO, but it's also pointed at the other side as well. So all of us have to get together and see how we can get around this. As far as BN is concerned, there is change towards this direction. This is one of my favorite subjects in BN, is that we've set up direct membership into BN. I fought hard for that 3 years ago at the BN Supreme Council meeting. Some people disagreed. I told the chairman of BN, Sri Najib, I said, we must have this, because this will be the model of the future. One fine day, people will not join the component parties of BN anymore. They'll join BN straight. When that happens, that's a signal for us to say that's the new model for the future. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And, you know, moving UMNO's trajectory also away from just being ethnic-based, Malay-based, to a more national outlook, One Malaysia and all that, I think is also a step in that direction.
Right, thank you. Right, thank you, Khairy. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching.